What's up, my fellow and future developers? Welcome back to End-to-End Web Development. In this lesson, I want to cover the creation of a to-do app, just so we can get a project under our belt. We want to start out from scratch using Vite to create a Vue project, and we're also going to be using a component framework for styling our web elements, and that's going to be DaisyUI, built on top of TailwindCSS. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment for a video suggestion that you would like me to explore. Alright, my friends, let's get started by creating a Vue app using PNPM. So I want to come in here and run PNPM create Vite. And we're going to provide an app name, and we're creating a to-do app. And then we want to use the Vue TypeScript template. So I'm just going to say template, and that's going to be Vue-ts. So now I have my app installed. I'm going to cd into its directory, and then I'm going to run pnpm install so that I can get all my dependencies for this project. So now that everything is installed, I want to go ahead and start the new app. So I'll go ahead and say npm run dev. And we can see our app is started and running on localhost. So I'll go ahead and click on that, and we can see that we have a standard Vue app. Let me go ahead and open my console here so we can monitor any logging as we develop this. Alright guys, so the next thing we want to do here is to install our component library that we're going to use for creating our styled UI elements. So let's go ahead and take a look at the DaisyUI framework. And in here, I want to go to installation, and we're using Vite, so I'm going to go for the Vite installation. So let's check that out. So we already completed step 1, where we create our new Vite project. So I'm going to move on to step 2, and we're using PNPM. So I'm just going to modify this a bit. I'm going to go ahead and copy just this section here, and then I'm going to go back to my app and open terminal, and we're going to cd back into our to-do app, and then I want to run pnpm add, and then we're adding TailwindCSS at latest along with TailwindCSS Vite at latest and the DaisyUI beta. So let's go ahead and run that, and we can see we have that installed. Let's take a look again at our documentation and see what our next step is. So our next step, we have to go and import TailwindCSS Vite inside of our Vite config. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So I'm going to open my directory here and go to my to-do app, and I can see my Vite config. I'm going to open it, and then we're going to import TailwindCSS. So we want to import it from TailwindCSS/Vite. And after we import that, we want to use it inside of our plugins. So let's go and look at our documentation again. So we covered step 2, and we covered the Vite config, and now we just need to go to our CSS file and import TailwindCSS and the DaisyUI plugin. So I'll find my CSS file in source, style.css, and we're gonna delete all our current styles. We're not gonna be using those. And I just wanna call for add import, and we're importing TailwindCSS. Then we also need to add plugin, and this is going to be for DaisyUI. So with those configurations, we should be ready to start using DaisyUI in our app. So next thing we're going to do here is go to our app.vue file, and we're going to remove all the styles. We're going to remove our hello world component, and we're going to remove all the content from within our div. Let's go ahead and take our hello world component, stop importing that. So for this demo here, we are going to be creating a to-do app. And for a to-do app, we're going to need a form and a button to input our to-dos. And then we're going to need a list that we're going to use to present those to-dos. And then we're going to add some interaction where we can mark to-dos as complete and such. So let's get started by creating a container here. And this is going to be for our form to collect our to-do info. So inside of here, I'm going to create a label, and I'm going to add a class from DaisyUI, and that's going to be for a floating label. Right, so inside of my label, I need to create a span, and this is going to be for my to-do description. All right, after the span, we need to create an input, and this is where we're gonna be inputting the details of our to-do. So I have an input, it's gonna be of type text, and we need to put a placeholder on this, and our placeholder is gonna be to-do description. All right, so it's an input, so we're going to style it with Daisy. So we need to provide a class here, and we're going to use the input class. So let's go take a look at that, see where we're at. And we can see we have a nice input showing up in here. So we want to get everything centered in our page so that we can interact with it better. So let's go out and look for our container here. And first we want to target our main parent container because we need to expand that to the full screen. So I'll go ahead and put a class on here, and this is going to be for H screen. So after setting that for H screen, I need to put a class on the input form. And for this one, we're going to set it to grid, and we're going to place the content center. So the next thing we need to do here, we want this container to take up the full height of the screen. So let's go and put a H full, just so it fills up our screen. So if we take a look at that, we can see our input dead center. All right, so let's go ahead and implement our button. So outside of our label here, we're going to create a button, and we're going to add a class. We're going to use DaisyUI again. I'm going to grab the btn, and we want a btn-success. That's going to give us a green button. For this, we want the text to be white, and we want to case the text. All right, so let's give our button a name. We're gonna call that save. Let's go take a look. So we see we have our to-do description and we have a save button. However, the save button is below the text and we want it to be side by side. So that means we need to add some additional styling. So if we come in here and we find our container for our form, we see that we're making it a full height container. It's a grid and we're placing all the contents in the center. So we now need to wrap our elements here inside of another div. And then on that div, we're going to add a class or flex. And then we just want to have some gap between the button and our input. So let's put gap x of 2 and check that out. And now we can see we have our form and our save button here. So we can go ahead and start creating our to-do items. All right, so we have our to-do input elements. Now we're going to need to create some elements where we can display all the to-dos that we have created. So for this, I'm going to be using the list component from DaisyUI. So let me go ahead and make some more space on here. Right below my div here, I'm going to create a container. And I'm going to use an unordered list. Just need to attach a couple of Daisy classes onto this. So first I'm going to use the list class, and I'm just going to add some background color here. Just to be rounded. Just add some shadow on here. So now I need a list item inside of here. And again, we're going to add a couple of classes. It's going to be a list row. Flex it and align the item center. So that list item is going to represent our to-do. So the text for our to-do, we're going to put in a span. Just put some demo text here for now. And then I want to go ahead and apply some styles on here. So we're going to grow this to make it takes up the majority of the space, and then we're going to put a cursor pointer so we can see that it's clickable. We're going to need the ability to delete to-dos, so I'll go ahead and put a delete button in here. Let's go ahead and put some classes on this button, and we're just going to do a button ghost. All these styles are available in the Daisy documentation. So if you guys want to check that out. I'll put a font on here. I'm an uppercase, any text. So for this, I'm just going to put an X. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we can see we have our first to-do item, and you see it shows up our hand. It's telling us that we can click on this item whenever we hover over it, and that's going to be our action where we click to mark it as completed. Then we have an X button here that we can use to say let's delete this to-do. So let's get some spacing between our input form and our to-do items. So let's go back in here, and on my container here, put a margin top of 5. There we go. So we have what we need for our UI elements right now, and the to-do item that we're displaying here, it's just a template so that we can see how it would lay out. We're gonna actually start connecting our data, and then we'll be able to create these things dynamically. So let's get back into the project and see what we need to do next. So to move forward, we are gonna now need to pull in Firebase and the Collection-Proxy, because we're at the point now where we're going to need to start interacting with the database. So let me go ahead and open my terminal here, and we want to install Firebase and the Collection-Proxy. So I'm going to use pnpm add Firebase, and we're also going to add the Collection-Proxy. So we have those installed, and I want to go ahead and initialize Firebase in this project. So I'm going to call Firebase init. I'm going to say yes, we want to continue. And what we're going to need here is Firestore, and we're also going to need the emulators. We're not going to use a default project. We're going to use the emulators for this. And we're going to accept all the defaults. So let's go get the Firestore emulator, and again, all the defaults. So now we should have Firebase set up in our app. Let's go ahead and take a look. So we see our firebase.json, and we can see that we have our Firestore emulator registered. So let's go and create some database elements that we can start using in our app. So in here, I want to go ahead and import the collection from Firestore. From the Collection-Proxy rather. And let's go import a few things from Vue. We want to import reactive. We also want to import the unmounted. So let's get started here. We're going to create a to-do document. It's going to be equal to the collection. We're going to set the collection name to the to-dos collection. And because we need reactivity on this, I'm going to call setData. And we're going to set that to a reactive object. So that allows us to use our to-do document in our template and maintain reactivity. So we're also going to need a list of to-dos. So all the to-dos that we've created, we want to present them. So we're going to create a to-dos collection, and we're going to make that equal to the collection and set collection name to to-dos again. And we also want to set data, and this time to a reactive array, because it's going to be a collection of to-dos. Okay. So whenever our component mounts, we want to go out and pull in all the to-dos that we have in the database. So we're just going to call to-dos collection, and we're going to call get documents. So that's going to go out and bring in all our to-do items. So now let's use our to-do in our app. So first off, when we have a to-do, or when we enter a to-do, we want to represent that data in our input. So we're going to bind the value of input to the to-do document. We're going to call get data, and we want the description of the to-do. Also, we want to add an input handler. So whenever you type into the field, we want to capture that information and store it in our to-do document. So we're going to get the event, and I'm just ignoring TypeScript right now. So we're going to say to-do document dot set data, and we want to set the description set that equal to e.target.value. So that's the value that's gonna be present after someone types into the input field. So now we're able to capture the details or the description of our to-do that's being created. So now, once you're satisfied with the input that you've entered, we want to be able to click this button and now store this new to-do in the database. So we're going to add an @click handler to our button. It's going to be equal to a function, and in here we're just going to call the to-do document and call create. So we're going to want to create to-dos back to back, one after the other. So we only have a single to-do document proxy. So we want to be able to reuse that. So for that, we need to make this async. We need to await it. So we need to await the creation of our to-do. And once it's created, we're going to call the to-do document, and we're going to tell it to replace the data that it collected previously. And then we're going to call setDoc just to generate a new Firestore ID. So that will clear out our form and set us up for entering our next to-do. So the final thing that we need to do here is to go and pull out all our to-do items and render them into our unordered list here. So to do that, I'm just going to drop this down to the next line. We're going to put a v-for here, and this allows us to loop through all our documents and represent them. So we're going to have a to-do, and we're saying in. So for all the to-dos in our to-dos collection, we're going to call get data here. So that's going to give us all our to-dos. And then we're accessing each to-do. And instead of our demo text here, we are going to render to-do.description. And this is coming directly from each to-do that we have in our database. So the next thing I want to do here is whenever you click on this to-do description, we're gonna mark that to-do as complete by drawing a line through it. So let's go ahead here and click handler. So whenever you click on this to-do description, we are going to update that individual to-do. So to do this, we need to use our collection proxy, and we're going to set a path from our current to-do. And then we're going to call update. And then the data of our update will be an object. Where we're setting completed to true. So that's all we should need to do for updating our to-do. So the set path on the collection proxy allows you to use a document from your database to rebuild a connection to that document path. So whenever we call update, it knows that it's updating this specific to-do. And we're saying that we want to update the completed at property, and we want to set it to true, telling the system that our to-do is completed. So when we mark our to-do as completed, we want to mark our span with a line going through it. So for that, we're going to have to apply some styles, and we got to do that conditionally. So I'm just going to update my class here to bind it to an object. And inside of here, I want to use the classes that I had before. We're just going to set that to true. And I want to add an additional class here, which is going to be line through. And we want to set that equal to the to-do dot completed. So we're saying for each to-do that we have, if it's completed, we're gonna run a line through, or represent a line going through the text description of our to-do. And that's how we're indicating right now that this to-do has been completed. Next thing I want to do here is provide delete capability. So if you click on the X button, that should delete your to-do from the database. So for this, we're going to need a click handler. To function. And in here, we're going to do pretty much the same thing, which is called the collection. And we're going to say set path to our to-do. And then we're going to call delete on that to-do. So that's going to bind the path for this to-do in our collection and allow us to delete it. So let's go take a look on what we have so far. So if we look in our form here, we can see we have no to-dos showing, and we're getting an error in our database. So we're having an error here because we have not configured the collection proxy. So to get this configured, I'm gonna hop back into the project here, and we're gonna open up terminal, and I'm gonna pull in the gist that I have, and I'll provide a link to this in our description. So let me go ahead and get that started. Go ahead and install that, and then we can take a look at our project we can see this gist folder here. And all we need to do is go in and copy out a few files. So the .env, the Firebase RC, Firebase init app, and Firebase init Firestore, because we're going to be using the configuration for Firestore. So we want to go ahead and copy those files into the root of our to-do app. And if this is a new app, you can go ahead and overwrite the Firebase RC. So once I have that configured, then I just need to jump back into my app.vue, and we want to import that configuration for Firestore. We want to import the Firebase init Firestore. So that's going to provide the configuration that we need for our project. And next thing, we want to start our emulators. So we'll do a Firebase emulators start. So now we have that running. Let's go take a look at our project again. So let's do a refresh. And we can see now we have no errors. Seems like everything is going well now. So let's try and create our first to-do. And I'll go ahead and hit save. And there we see it. Our first to-do shows up. Let's create another one. We have two to-dos. And I'm going to go ahead and try marking my first to-do as complete by clicking on it. And we can see it gets a line through. Same thing for our second to-do. And we could go ahead and create a third. Now we want to go ahead and try deleting to-dos. So I'll go and click on the X button, and we can see that our to-dos are disappearing. So it seems like we made it through the project where we were able to create our UI from scratch and configure Firebase and the Collection-Proxy and be able to add, update, and remove to-dos from our database. So if you guys like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and check me out on GitHub. And if you have any comments on projects that you would like me to explore, just leave it in the comment and I'll try to follow up when I can. Thank you guys for watching.